Hey guys, welcome to week 7. This is Dynamic Sketching, and as you can see, we're in front of Photoshop right now. And I'm not going to be doing any kind of hands-on paper with pen demo today. I just wanted to do everything digitally, just to give you guys a quick demonstration and idea of what I'm looking forward for you guys to do this week. Last week we were at the Arboretum, so we looked at a lot of plants, um, botany, and I wanted you guys to be doing a redesign this week. And I just wanted to show you what it consisted of exactly what I'm looking for, which is why we're going digital right now, so we can do things like look at reference. Um, for the redesign project in particular, um, I wanted to be themed off of plants. This will give us a bit more focus in terms of what we need to do and what we need to design. Now, I'm not restricting you to, let's say, designing just a plant. If you wanted to, you could design a creature, a character, a vehicle, a weapon, but it has to be designed on a plant. Whether that be just the forms and shapes you're pulling off of plants, the texturing, the surface details, but it has to be plant-like. Let's say if you're designing a vehicle or a weapon, I mean, it doesn't have to actually be a plant that grows. It could be, but it could be a hard surface, metal, plastic, whatever. But it still retains some of these forms and shapes, repetitious patterns, things that you pull as inspiration from. Now, these shots in particular are my own personal shot that I took, and I recommend you guys whenever we go out or when you go out to take your own personal reference so that you know what you're looking for. If you can't find it, then go online and look for particular things that you're looking for. These shots I went on, researched, looking for a particular plant that I liked, you know, the shapes of. And I'm really inspired by. This is a pitcher plant right here. This is also, these are a series of pitcher plants, and I like them for their shapes and patterns. If you don't know, the pitcher plant is also a carnivorous plant, so it eats insects, small lizards, stuff like that. Again, really unique, interesting shapes. These could be almost alien-like, so I look at a lot of patterns. So that's some of the reference I've looked at, and I want you guys to do the same as also this week. Is look for reference, if not your own. Go online, Google, type in some, whatever word theme, and look for a plant that kind of inspires you and drives you in terms of a direction that you want to go to. Like I had said, you don't have to be restricted to just a plant. You can do a creature design, a vehicle design, but within those shapes. But for this week, for this particular demo that I'm going to start doing, I just want to do a plant design for you guys. Now, again, I'm doing things digitally. I'm handling them exactly the way I would on paper and pen. This is just regular hard brush. So, just to show you, what I'm doing here now is not pre-planned. I haven't thought of any of this, and I kind of wanted to show you how I started from scratch, not knowing what I'm going to be doing. Just to show you guys, how I tackle things, how I think, what I initially do. And a lot of guys, when you're teaching class, they'll have everything planned out for you, so it's kind of like a quick one to it's all done. And it seems a little, I don't know, it feels like you miss steps sometimes. But here with this one, I kind of wanted to show you from the beginning what I started doing. I'm going to design a plant for you guys. Designing, first thing, function. And I'm actually going to, I do this a lot. I do a lot of note taking, writing stuff down, just to get ideas out of my head, especially when it's the most basic stuff. So function is probably key. What is its function? What is its purpose? And this pertains to design throughout. If it's character, vehicle, weapon, creature, everything has a function. I'm not limiting you guys to doing, really realistic, scientific, whatever style of design. You can go stylized. You can do cartoony stuff. You can include humor, and I encourage it. Go out there and explore. But with this one, I'm going to do one that's going to be kind of plant slash creature that applies to a video game. Let's say function. Maybe it's carnivorous, or it could provide food, provide shelter. Again, function. What is this? What do I want this thing to do? And the first thing people always wanted to try is carnivorous, and this is actually one of the more easier ones to do because it's easy to create a monster-like plant that eats other other creatures or whatever. And actually, this is where I kind of want to bring in the idea of symbiotic relationships. It's easy to just design one object that does one particular thing. But I like the idea of having relationships. One thing affects another. And again, this also connects to all ranges of design. But for this in particular, when it comes to like creature design or in a something that is included in or grounded in the environment, I like to have relationships, things that play off of each other. For a plant, it's going to be crucial to have something like this because it'll really help you focus and finalize what you want in terms of the design. So let's take a look. Let's do something carnivorous, something with a symbiotic relationship. And by symbiotic, it's almost a parasitic kind of relationship. One requires the other. And that actually can go back towards the function in terms of what it can do for this, you know, other creature that it kind of helps, or it helps the plant. And that could also provide food, shelter, even water, the most basic functions. So now we have a relationship. One gives another, the other, another, let's say this half of it, the parasite part, could give protection. Um, what is it? Pollination. Or even maybe transportation. Um, Again, just thinking out loud. So here's some couple notes that I kind of put down. All right, carnivorous. The plants that we looked at in terms of reference, some of this stuff, these pitcher plants, stuff like that. These guys are carnivorous plants, like I mentioned. And I like looking at some of these shapes. And again, maybe take one or two plants and be really inspired by what their forms are like. Look at things like Venus flytraps or other types of carnivorous plants. If you're going to go in that direction, that might help. If you're going to bring this thing to life to make it almost creature-like, of course, you can think of things like movement, how limbs, structure, all that kind of stuff. So let's do this. Let's do the carnivorous provides possibly shelter to the symbiotic relationship, but this part provides possibly pollination. So let's bring these elements together. Carnivorous, shelter, the parasitic provides pollination, so being able to transport pollen from one thing to another. If we're going to include pollen, then obviously the plant has to have a flower of some sort that produces the pollen. So again, that'll give us an idea. Flower-like plant that grows from it. A second part we gotta think about is the environment. The environment drives the design, and we gotta think about things like where it's situated: the desert, forest, jungle, maybe even alien. depending on where this particular plant is, will also, really give us an idea of how this plant should look. Let's do something maybe jungle based. Give it something more floral, something that could be visually stunning. Let's bring that over as well. Um, Now, when we start approaching to sketch and draw, and I want you guys to do the way I, had you guys start the Arboretum last week is thumbnailing, sketching. I don't want you guys sitting there on a single drawing spending 15, 20 minutes on it, where right now we should just only be thinking about shapes, forms, and just thumbnailing. Remember, catching the overall forms and shapes. Again, quick thumbnails. This is definitely more based off the picture plant, but again, starting off with something that you understand and already know, and then breaking away from it as you go was always a good idea, because the first drawing and sketches you're going to start doing will be heavily influenced by what you've seen. So you want to get that out of your system, get it out of the way, because it's not what you want to go with. It's the obvious choice, and the obvious choice is not what you want. You want something that's more unique. Let's keep going. Let's do another one here. Again, now I got to think about how is it situated in the environment? How is it integrated into this place, into this jungle? And also, got to go back to think about shelter. If it's got to provide shelter to this whatever creature it is, which we'll come back to a little later, we got to think what. Let's actually with the symbiotic relationship, let's think about what this particular creature is. Is it a rodent? Is it another plant itself? Let's go with insect. With this one, if we have an insect with a relationship with a carnivorous plant, now we got to think about, is this thing grounded or is it flying? Because if it's flying, then we could probably have this plant in the trees up high, which would be quite interesting actually. Or we could have it on the ground, so the insect could be almost ant-like, beetle-like, whatever. But I like the idea of having a shelter-like plant that's carnivorous, that lives up high in the trees. In a way, it's protecting itself. We also have to think about, if it's carnivorous, what it eats. And let's say this insect is the only kind of insect this plant doesn't eat. So in a way, that's how it's kind of like the idea when you look in the ocean. You have the clownfish. You have the sea anemones. They're poisonous, whatever. You can't touch them. But only that clownfish is able to go and move around it. Interesting thought. So maybe this insect has found a way to disguise itself, or maybe give off a scent that kind of throws this plant off, like it doesn't see it as prey. So whatever other insect that comes along, it eats, but not this particular insect. And we'll come back as to why it doesn't do that. But for now, we're thinking flying insect. Carnivorous, so shelter is up high in the trees. What the tree is does not matter. We could just draw a branch. Here's a base, a trunk. And maybe it could be a three-way kind of parasitic relationship, where the tree itself is being fed off by this plant here. It attaches on. But let's change the forms and design here. Give us a fat, unique shape. Maybe kind of integrated into there, into the branches, kind of weaves in and out, kind of like a vine, but I still want a strong shape. Maybe it has these tentacles that kind of come in and grips itself into the tree. And I wanted to make the plant a little more creature-like, so we'll make it almost look like an actual mouth. These could be like claws or appendages that come out. And I'm just showing you guys the process of what I'm looking for. And when it comes to the redesign for your homework this week, I want it to be 2 pages. And the 2 pages, the first page, which is kind of like this, is just ideation, sketching, design, thinking, note taking, whatever, showing me your thought process. The second page we'll be doing is going to be kind of like a finalized design. And I don't want you guys rendering or painting the plant. I just want you guys to have the finalized design finished out and presented on the page. And that's pretty much going to be what I'm looking for this week. We're also thinking about pollination, so it also has to have a way to maybe secrete or maybe drops down this kind of pollen. Maybe the reason why this insect needs shelter is it lays its eggs on this plant. Maybe we'll flatten this part out here. Maybe this is where the insect comes in, lays its eggs on this area right here. But to get to it, you have to get past the mouth. So in that case, instead of having the pollen down here, maybe the pollen comes back over here. So whenever the insect lands in this spot in here, it pollinates itself with the pollen of the plant, lays its eggs, and as it leaves, goes to another one, pollinates the other plant. Make it a little bit more floral, more attractive like. Now how does it catch its other insect, or how does it catch its prey? And a lot of the times if you look at things like the Venus flytrap, it's got these teeth that come out of it, and you wonder, why would something want to go in there? Well, Venus flytraps secrete a sugar type of secretion inside of its mouth, and the fly is obviously attracted to that scent, wants to go and eat the sweet secretions. And inside of the mouth are these little spines, and whenever the fly triggers all 3 of the spines that are inside of the mouth, it closes. So maybe this particular plant can also secrete or give off a scent that attracts insects. Now, when it comes to like a little bit of a creature design, not only am I thinking of plants, I'm thinking of a bit of other stuff that's out there, and I tend to like to think of like marine biology. This that I'm kind of pulling from right now is almost like an anglerfish. I don't know if you guys know what anglerfish is, but kind of ugly. It's got this giant mouth with big teeth. And it's got these little anglers that come off the bottom and top of their heads. And it lights up using bioluminescence. And little fish are attracted to those lights, and they'll come at it like a mosquito to one of those zappers. And it catches its prey that way. So maybe this can give off a scent or even a light itself. Maybe the plant has a way of producing a bioluminescence. And maybe that light travels up into that, goes directly into the mouth. Pretty cool idea. Let's play with a bit more shape. Now we know, I kind of like this idea of having it attached to the plant, or not the plant, but the tree itself. Kind of webs up here. But let's keep going. Maybe go back to more space here. Let's keep going. A couple more shapes. Maybe this one directly hugs the tree all around. We have to also think about scale. Good going away about it is like giving us something that relates us, something we understand how big something is already, whether it be a human being or an insect or a creature that already exists that we know what the size of it is, and putting it next to it, just to give us a sense of scale and how large this thing is supposed to be. Playing with another shape here. Maybe there's some appendages or something that kind of hangs down on this. Maybe the mouth is up here. Some weird, unique, grotesque pattern. And lassos down with sticky ends or something. Pulls it to the teeth and maybe pulls it up that way. Maybe it has this open spot down here that kind of is a platform. And it dangles down pollen or something. So as the other insect comes in, lands on it, gets pollinated by this, lays its eggs. As it leaves, now if you don't know, flowers actually, produce a pheromone type of thing, so it attracts bees, and the bees see it as almost like light, and it's like a runway. Maybe that produces some kind of maybe patterning here or lighting that attracts that particular insect the plant wants it to come to. So that it comes and rests on here, pollinates itself, and exits out the other way. Maybe we have patches up here where it produces that secretion, like a sugar type secretion. So It's all like glistening on this belly type thing here. It's got this unique pattern up here maybe. So as the insect tries to come in this way, catches it within the teeth, brings it up. So maybe we can have more appendages. Unique. Interesting. I guess I could call this one a shovel. A shovel plant. It's got this shovel on the bottom here. Remember, this is exactly the way I would be doing it on paper. No different. Kind of like this one. It's got a bit of leaf-like structures up here. The tree. Again, playing of opposites. Maybe it's got these thick, really bulbous forms. And we got this really thin, web-like vine that's coming out of it, producing little leaves or something. Hugging, integrating with itself into the tree. Yeah, this is kind of boring. This is a little bit more interesting looking. I like the idea up here, but it's a little long. I want to bring it up a little bit more. Obvious picture plant going from here to here. It's a nice transition coming from here to here. Pushed a little bit more. Again, we're trying to make something unique, a little more original. Let's do one more and we'll move on. I kind of want to pull the top part here, which I do like. Again, simplifying these forms. As the tree comes down here, maybe there's the platform here. This wraps around like that. This comes in and wraps around at the bottom. This is where maybe some of the pollen can hang. More of the vine up here. So this would be like a cast shadow here. So the insect flies in this direction, hits these pollens, lands here, lays its eggs, flies away. But I do like the idea of this belly type of thing where it kind of secretes this sugary liquid. This is where the mouth could be. Again, bringing in that patterning, blending it into the body. We got the teeth, and I want to make these a little bit larger, almost like feelers, so whatever touches it or sets it off, it's got sticky ends or something. If it hits it, comes in, hits it, pulls it into its mouth. the secretion has to be centralized, focused, an area where plant can't come in or the insect can't come in different directions, so it won't really hit it. So we need more of these arms that kind of fan out. Comes in this direction, hits it. Now I'm going to start to think about surface detail, patterning. So maybe this can like sway back and forth. This kind of dangles below it. Now I don't really look at reference too much. I just looked at it just for overall inspiration. Started with the pitcher plant, but I don't really go back to it too much. I've kind of built up a good visual vocabulary of things in my head where I've seen so much and I've drawn so much that a lot of the times I don't really need to look online for reference or take my own pictures, because the more you draw something, the more you understand how it works, and you understand how to break it down, and you figure out the basic core design elements and shapes that you need, that you can start to bring in and start to use for your own designs. And it makes it much more of a speedy process where I don't have to think about it. So I like, yeah, this is much better. Whereas this was kind of a separate element. You have a 1, 2, 3. This feels a lot more unified. It's got that nice S curve back into the tree, unique platform. The size of the insect could be maybe this big. It's pretty cool. I'm not actually going to be doing color, but I could probably take, notes on color, so parts of this could be green with red patterning. And these are just notes for myself, just so I can come back and it's like a cream maybe. These can be crimson. And just some color ideas, things I could place here and there. Some yellows as well, maybe. Where do I want my saturation? Probably in here. Focal. Again, note taking, constant. So coming from something like this with my initial thought, which is more pitcher plant like, going to this, something much more visually striking. Feels alive, feels like a lot of this stuff can have really cool animations, movement. Yeah, think about that as well. Like, when we're designing for video games, if it's a living organism, we have to think about movement, animation. How can we build this? If it's way too complicated, the more polys you gotta need. So again, keeping forms and shapes simple and relying more on things like texturing, bump mapping, stuff like that for the surface detail is good, because this would be easy to build. Cool. Let's do the insect real quick. An insect really doesn't really matter. It's a flying insect, so maybe I'll do something that's maybe dragonfly inspired, Obviously, you guys know insects have 6 legs. And I will be doing insect sections on the second half of the class. Dynamic 2. And if you look at insect legs, it's a triangle. ABC. Triangle. There's a hinge up here, comes down. There's a leg, and this is detached with the body. Even the head, the face of an insect, is a triangle. For insect, no matter what, go with a triangle for the face. But maybe it has these special furry type of abdomen where it kind of hits this pollinated webbing and it collects it onto there. Got these big wings and claw type. And the reason why this insect may not be eaten either, we can do it two ways. One, the insect gives off a particular scent or pheromone where the plant recognizes it, allows it to go into its pollination webbing, or maybe the plant itself produces a separate type of scent where it attracts the insect into its nest, because the plant knows only this insect can pollinate. So that kind of symbiotic relationship where they evolve together, where they've always been together, where they need each other. They can't survive without each other. But I could do, a lot of different things with this. I just wanted to show you just a sample of it. Do a different version here. Actually, we'll have that curve down. There's fur on top of that, but either way, we'll finalize that a little bit more later. Just a quick thumbnailing process idea of like what I can do with it. Maybe do some side profile shots. Again, I just constantly do thumbnailing just to get that right shape that I want. That's kind of cool. Do the face real quick. Pay attention to eyes whenever you design creatures or characters. Eyes are super important. It's not just a black dot with a highlight. Lots of different things are happening within the eyes. Patterning, uh, color, light, surface detail. A lot of different stuff is happening. Anyways, let's move on. So here's a good solid page of just ideation, note taking, sketching. A lot of that stuff could just be for me. Nobody might not understand what's exactly happening on this page, but this is for me to really think, just to problem solve. What do I want? Started with note taking, going into my first initial sketch, pushing that sketch, pulling from different ideas, getting something a little bit more that I like that's unique, then getting close a lot closer to what I want finalized. Of course, when we're in a studio situation, you're gonna go back and forth. You'll hand this in to an art director or whoever's in charge and lead, and maybe you'll give them a series of things like silhouettes. And that's also a good thing to do, where maybe you're not doing line work, but you're just creating shapes and silhouettes. That sound, that look interesting from a further read from far away. And maybe you get to that same kind of result where you end up coming to this. So maybe doing a whole page of just silhouettes might help. And I definitely do recommend it for you guys to try that. If you guys have markers, a dark marker, use a broadside. Let's say we go with something a bit more broad. Just create some random shapes and just cut away into them. And maybe you'll get something. But again, do a series of these. Maybe just using the marker. And then you get a certain silhouette or shape that the director or lead may like, and you pull from that and you start to do the line work like this. Again, a lot of thinking. Let's do another layer here. Now, I like this particular shape. Let's cut this out. We'll place that over here just for reference in terms of what I was trying to go for. And this will be your second page. So this is where I want you guys to really display your design. And this you could do in a number of different ways. You could do like the initial drawing and sketch that you had here. Do a much more finalized version. A finalized line version of your initial sketch. And then go into details, things like what do these individual appendages look like, what's kind of patterning happening on top of here, do a finalized design of the insect, how these particular vines look wrapped around the tree, what this pollination strands look like here, and there's a lot you could do. So maybe I want to start, and then just compose the page. Maybe you have text up here of what the plant is. Note-taking ideas like what's coming down each plant. Let's cut this page down here. So yeah, things like details, up close shots, swatches. Maybe there's a swatch and you show a patterning. This is the surface detail. What's happening on top of that? Keeping in mind of things like focal point. Keep that in mind when you're drawing. So when we start to do this, I'm going to start to maybe detail out more of this area here and do less detail down here. So that where eye goes to the top part and flows down. I'm going to drop the opacity on this here. Create another layer. And for you guys, you'd have to just basically redraw it. But for me, when I start to draw on digital, I'll take this initial form and I'll just draw right on top of it. And that's basically to save time. But let's just do another drawing here. Refine it a little bit. as I go along. I'm just, thinking about what I've already drawn. The thing is also is that when you draw something for the first time, you're going to have a hard time drawing it because you're just thinking too hard. You're trying to figure out what kind of shapes is happening on there. Uh, you're trying to make it aesthetically pleasing, so you're making sure everything works, you know, unified well. So it takes you a while. But once you've drawn it once, it's much easier to draw it again because you understand what's already happening. And I suggest doing this a lot where you draw one thing, stuff that's at location or you're creating your own ideas. You draw it once, draw it again. And it'll become easier and easier to draw. When you start to compose on a page, watch for things like tangents. Don't get too close to the edge of the paper. I have my final image that's going to be posted here. I have some swatches that are going to go here. My details will go here. Now I'm not going to put color into this. It's just line drawing, just design. And that's something I'm not saying I don't do. I'm just saying for you guys in this particular work, I don't want you guys going into color too much. Just focus on the drawing aspect. Like I said, you're not restricted to designing a plant like I'm doing here. Design whatever you want. Just be inspired by a plant. If you like, I'm not saying you can't use color. You can if you like. But like the white pen or the gel pen that we're using, be very, very, very minimal about it. It should accentuate the sketch, bring it to up a level, and not really be distracting and bog down the sketch and drawing. Where that's probably if the color is the thing that I'm looking at the most, and obviously the drawing is not standing out, the drawing has to stand out. So the color is just there to support. And if it's not doing that, then obviously that's not what I was looking for. Alright. I don't want to spend too much more time. I just wanted to show you the next process for what I'm doing here. But pretty straightforward. It's not too complex. Idea is not too challenging, but it can be time consuming. And the thing is if you put this off the last minute, I can easily tell because it's a thinking process, and that process takes time. Create these ridges down here. Just create that really more interesting looking surface. pollen web. Let's get rid of that sketch. I don't need it anymore. Create this patterning up here. With this, I'm gonna hatch it in. All right. Now what I'll do is like thinking like the marker. Let's create a layer underneath here. Let's give it a quick tone on this. Actually, I'm gonna tone the background just a little bit. Darken out this tree. And let's say like we have the white gel pen. Come on, a layer on top of that. Maybe the surface is glistening a little bit here. Do the insect real quick. Top of here is where the surface is, where it kind of catches that pollen. All right. Not going to get too detailed on this insect right now, but just to give you a general idea. And maybe that's the insect that goes in here. We'll give it a scale size here. Maybe inside it's laying its eggs. And like I said, we can do the detailing. Maybe I'll do one appendage here. What we can do is take this spot, bring it up here. And really show what that looks like. Maybe within them they have small little hairs also. And it's what produces like this sticky resin type of thing that catches the insect as it crosses it. And maybe there can be little fine hairs that come out. So they're not particularly teeth, but more like little fingers, feelers. And again, I'd be doing that a lot more of that, just detailing out this section here, detailing out the swatch pattern up here, detailing out the pollen, and give your plant a name. I'll put the name down here. Genus, scientific name, small notes on that, notes on that, just notes on the insect itself. The use of arrows, important, use them. Direct the eye and compose the page overall. So I have my large image over here, my small little details on this side. The text will go in here, text will go down here. Give a name for the insect, describe its purpose, why it's not getting eaten, what its relationship is between this plant. More text here, and this will be a final presentation page. Going back, sketch. Final page. Pretty straightforward. Um, so I'd like you guys to tackle this week. 2 pages. The first page is ideation sketching. The second page will be a finalized design. Again, you're not restricted to a plant. You can try doing a character of a plant, a creature, vehicle, weapon, whatever. As long as it's plant based, show me, paste your images, your reference into the first page if you like. Just show me where you're coming from. And then we'll go from there. Just we'll put them all up and I'll critique them. We'll go back and forth and I'll tell you what else you guys can do. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you next week. All right.